If I went hungry one day in the 4th grade and I blew my lunch money on 30 Bitcoins for 10 cents in 2010, then that would have turned into $3,000 in 2012. Now, if my 7th grade self had diamond hands and I held it all the way until I was in 8th grade, I would have 10x that into $30,000. Now, if I really held on to it and I really wrote it out, at the end of 2021, I would have amassed $1.8 million just in time to get myself over to the club and blow it all on bottle service.
Can I ask you, if you won all the money, what would you do with it?
Bunch of hookers and cocaine.
Oh, okay, that's not good. We were hoping for a different answer. That's probably not the answer.
Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin in 2009. Neither the public nor the media gave it any attention. They were completely oblivious to this innovation that had revolutionary potential. Unlike today, where most people see it as an investment asset that can make them rich, the idea it was founded on was it was a decentralized currency run on blockchain, which thereby enabled people to securely and anonymously and instantly send money to each other without the need for a bank account. The point is that for the first several years that Bitcoin was around, it's typically used as a currency for people to purchase illicit drugs and get things like fake IDs. Here's 3 mind-boggling stories about the people that bought or received some Bitcoin back in the early days, forgot about it, and what ended up happening with them. Years passed by before the public found out that people were getting rich off of Bitcoin, and this is really when it started getting a lot of media attention. Bitcoin started out like a lot of shitcoins we see today. A small fraction of a cent. It would take 3 years for it to break $100 in 2012 and 4 years to break the $1,000 mark at the end of 2013. Here's 3 mind-boggling stories about people that bought some Bitcoin back in its early days and what they're up to now. So the first story is about this Norwegian guy. His name's Christopher Koch, and he forgot about $27. $27 that he was going to use for himself and his family to buy groceries for that week, and yielded it all on Bitcoin back in 2009. With that money, he bought 5,000 Bitcoins, which works out to about a half cent per Bitcoin. These sat dormant in a wallet until 2013, and decided to check on them because the news was talking about Bitcoin. When he tried to log back into his wallet, he could not work out the password. I'm glad that this is before the need to enter random mnemonic seed to access your wallet, because then he would have really been screwed. He eventually figured out the password, logged in, and saw that his portfolio was worth $887,000. Imagine chilling on the couch, watching the news on your day off. You're eating some chips and guac in your living room. Decide to check on some random investment from 4 years ago that your wife and friends said was stupid, and find out your Swedish meatball budget turned into $887,000. Needless to say, I feel indestructible. So, what did our friend Chris end up doing with the money?
Bunch of hookers and cocaine.
Turns out, he sold 1/5 of his holdings, or about 1,000 Bitcoin, and bought an apartment in a wealthy part of Norway's capital. Do you guys think that Chris still holds his 4,000 other Bitcoins? Unfortunately, we haven't really gotten an update on him since the last decade. If Chris held on to his 4,000 other Bitcoins, he would have amassed $176 million at the time of the making of this video, and he'd be laughing at the apartment he bought a decade ago. Story number 2. Next is a little-known story about a big-time rapper. Back in 2014, some of the sales for 50's album, Animal Ambition, was paid in Bitcoin. According to TMZ, 50 received about 700 Bitcoins, which would have been around $475,000. Considering that each Bitcoin at the time was worth about $680. He totally forgot about them, and at the beginning of 2018, when Bitcoin shot up to around $20,000 in value, he found out that the Bitcoin was worth $8.5 million. It would have been more than $25 million if he cashed them out for $60K a piece at the end of 2021. I don't think this story hits as hard because we're not talking about a normal person suddenly getting rich, but considering that 50 claimed that he was flat broke and in bankruptcy court a few years before this, it's definitely a big W, and I'm happy this happened to him. It is unknown if 50 still holds this Bitcoin today. Story number 3. The final story is about a German man named Stephen Thomas, who in 2011 made a short, minute-long YouTube video called What is Bitcoin? Gear up, guys, because we are ending this with a banger of a story. This guy had exactly 7,002 Bitcoin on a USB stick. To be safe, he made 2 other copies of them. Keep in mind, this is back when Bitcoin was worth about $2 a piece. And although $14,000 sounds like a good amount of money, this USB stick is worth $308 million as of January 2024. So get this, Steven lost the 2 copies of the USB stick and then lost a password to its remaining USB stick containing the 7,000 Bitcoin. When this first happened, the USB stick was worth about 140 grand. Spent a week trying to look for his password, but it was to no success. He described it himself as pretty painful. Go figure. To make things even worse, Steven had only 2 attempts to crack the password before he was locked out of his funds forever. As the value of his holdings would approach $500 million in 2021, he told the New York Times that he would lay in bed just thinking about it. Sometimes he would get on his computer, try and come up with a new strategy, but then give up again. Look, I've taken some L's, but this is something else. We're not talking about a little bit of money. We're not talking about 20 grand. We're not talking about 30 grand. This is money that can change you and your whole family's lives for generations. This guy's handling this a lot better than I would ever be able to. Interestingly, a group of hackers teamed up to form a company called Unciphered in 2021 with the goal of reversing these L's, opening these locked wallets, and helping people get their money back. Honestly, a great service for a high-ticket, niche service that did not yet exist. So hats off to them. Just last year in 2023, Unciphered began looking into ways that they could crack the technology securing Steven's wallet. This was not some ordinary USB stick. This was the IronKey USB. Although being 13 years old, it was not going to be an easy project to crack. The development for this particular USB stick was partially funded by the US Department of Homeland Security to allow for US military intelligence to be encrypted. Let that sink in. They did find some possible loopholes in the technology that they could see if they could exploit. The company put together a pretty strong team, some of them with backgrounds in the CIA, FBI, and NSA. They worked many avenues to try and finish the task. They broke down technology layer by layer, even tracked down some of the early developers in technology. These are people that designed the IronKey hardware back in the 90s. They did it. They can't reveal their methods because this technology is still in wide use today. But they cracked this particular model IronKey over 1,000 times since then. So they got into contact with our friend Steven and got to work on cracking the code. No, I'm just kidding. That didn't happen. According to Wired, Steven has an unusual lack of urgency to unlock his funds. Steven got into contact with a couple of hardware hacking companies about his lost funds more recently, but he has not pulled the trigger. One hacker, Chris Tarnovsky, said Steven told him that he could dish out a generous commission for the work, but did not talk about a number. The company also wants Steven to begin paying upfront in order to start the work on cracking his IronKey. Tarnovsky said that he's been waiting for the call from Steven to pull the trigger. It turns out that Steven is already rich now from his other crypto ventures. He is going to move forward on unlocking his wallet. He wants a rock-solid contract with a rock-solid team, which will take lots of time and effort. Apparently, Steven has enough money to put this 9-figure gold mine on the back burner.